And I mean, it's clear it is a massive potential differentiator for companies. In terms of where they are, I mean, often a lot of these new agile IT ideas, if you're a startup, it's great because you just, go with it, no problem. But clearly a lot of companies have a lot of legacy baggage. Is it that much more difficult for, a company, whether it's just, cultural reasons and or the infrastructure they have, to embrace something like value stream management? Or is it almost even better for them because they can improve old practices, whereas the people starting up hopefully don't do any of the bad old stuff, they just start up in the cloud or whatever?
Well, you're absolutely right. The people that have the luxury of starting from scratch have the ability to use all the latest tools and all the latest techniques, and that indeed is what those successful companies are doing. And more power to them. It's excellent, great. But when we look out, Plutora and really the value stream management ecosystem, all the vendors, whether, if you look at the recently published Forrester Wave, and there's, four leaders in that quadrant, and all of those leaders are selling to large organizations that are struggling with exactly the things that you're describing. And the choices that they have are immense. There's countless data centers that are on premises where there's millions of dollars worth of equipment running, software applications that have been built 20, 30 years ago and been maintained ever since. So now you have people saying, well, would we be better off running that in the cloud? Would we be better off rebuilding that in a SaaS kind of architecture for our customer? What do our customers need and want? And how is our current infrastructure of systems and software inhibiting our ability to deliver that value? The answers to those questions are not just opinions, and and it isn't just, well, we should move everything to new technology because new technology is good, therefore we'll be better. That's not true either. So you have to be able to understand, organizations have to be able to understand what they're trying to accomplish, where the value would come from. If I was going to move applications from an on-premises data center to a cloud, I'm going to increase my costs up there. I'm going to decrease my capital expense here. What's the right balance? That has a lot to do with how that software is being consumed. Is it a revenue generating software? What is it? So there's lots of things that go into the decisions on how to build out your software infrastructure if you're a legacy organization that has tons of different capabilities. So what we find is that people are at different levels of maturity. They're all looking to use the new technologies to evolve their older applications as needed, which is a measure of where they will get the biggest bang for their buck, the biggest savings, or the biggest improvement in value delivered. And they can do that by starting to get what we would call a value stream map, starting to understand how things are connected together, where money is being spent, where delays are showing up, and be able to look at that and run what-if analysis. We talked about that. Run what-if analysis on where the savings might be. If I change these environments to cloud, what would the corresponding cost and benefit equation look like? I can start to do that if I instrument my capabilities. So, large organizations, culturally, it's difficult, as you point out. It's also required. And so that's the battle everybody is in the middle of right now with their transition, is evolving the culture, evolving the tools, evolving the process, and doing so with a data-driven analysis that shows where my biggest improvements will be. And a lot of what I just described is not even in the consciousness of a startup or a company that starts, with, just the latest technologies. They don't need to deal with that, and that's great. But Venmo, if the banks are competing with Venmo, and Venmo started that way. The banks didn't have the luxury, and there's an example of that, of an organization or really a whole industry that wasn't able to move quickly enough to deal with a competitive threat. And it's because of the things we're talking about. They're getting better. They're utilizing this capability. They're automating, they're embracing and including their legacy processes with their overall software delivery factory, and they're getting way better. They're improving from, maybe 2 or 3 software releases a year to 1 or 2 a month, and they're striving to get to maybe I can do something every week. But it's a heavy lift. But every time you make one of those transitions, you're improving. And it's a little bit like my golf game. It's what you want to do is be getting better. Your aspirations of being a pro are probably gone, but if you can continue to get better, you will survive. And companies need to do that as well. They need to get better. They need to improve their software delivery, improve their compliance in a distributed world that we live in now, improve the costs associated with managing all kinds of different delivery processes, and really streamline that in a way that matches what they're trying to achieve as a company. And in order to do that, they need to have visibility on their processes, understand where they're spending money, time, and energy, and understand how well they're delivering the value to their customers. And if they can do that, they'll be able to make decisions over time and improve.
Okay, and just before we close, looking maybe a bit to the future, both in terms of the value stream management, I mean, what other things can you imagine need to be added to the products that exist at the moment, and clearly that will have an impact, or Plutora has some plans itself. So thoughts on VSM itself and Plutora's sort of part in that.
Well, I think if the trajectory of innovation and evolution that we've been on, even if I look at it through Plutora's eyes, and you say, when we started, this, 8, 9 years ago, what we really had was an automation tool for manual processes, because that was the bulk of what we saw. And so we used to refer to our product as a flight deck for manual processes. So we could manage how everything was coming in and kind of orchestrate a smooth delivery of software through a series of manual processes. What we've seen is an evolution towards automation, and that evolution towards automation is moved into leveraging cloud container management capabilities, and really moving in that direction. And they're starting to talk about the autonomous revolution is the next revolution after the industrial revolution. So there's this notion of everything going in this automated direction. And I think that the role of machine learning, the role of being able to because of all the data that's being collected, the maturity and innovation associated with data analysis, with BI tools, the mining of that information, and therefore the intelligence that can be built into a process more automatically, so that ultimately value stream management is embedded in the very tools that everybody's buying. And all of a sudden, you're not buying value stream management anymore. It's just think about management capabilities. I mean, ultimately, value stream management is a management tool for a heterogeneous development system. And I say it that way. It's kind of old 90s language, because when we were building network and system management in the days where things like Tivoli and OpenView and Unicenter were coming out, we talked about those being management platforms for heterogeneous data centers and systems. So it's a really similar value proposition, and really solving a lot of the same kinds of problems within the context of development today and system and network management in the past. Well, today, where are those systems? Do you go out and buy Unicenter? Those systems have morphed into being really part of the fabric of everything you do, and now they're in the cloud, and it's all automated, and it's a very different world. I think value stream management will go that same way. A decade from now, it'll all be embedded in the tools. It'll be automated in the cloud. Things will really be moving in that direction. And I think there, will continue to be back-end processes, but they'll benefit from this advancement in really artificial intelligence and machine learning to really, put a exclamation mark at the end of this innovation track.
Okay, I mean, that's brilliant. I really appreciate sharing so much of your time and thoughts with us. Thanks very much indeed, Bob.